My guest at this time is the MLW World Heavyweight Champion. It is Hammerstone. Hammerstone, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, I think this may be the first time we've talked since you solidified yourself as the guy in MLW at that big win over Jacob Fatu. I mean, it's been a minute here now, right? How do you feel being kind of crowned as the guy in MLW has affected you kind of personally and as a wrestler? How has that affected you?
Man, you know what? It's crazy because it's a huge change, but it's like almost more of the same. Like it's a moment that, when I signed the dotted line, way back in 2019 or 2018 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
um, I started, I was like, man, one day I'd love to, like, that's my goal, that's the ultimate goal, but like it kind of seems unrealistic or like so far off. And then like as it's approaching, it still doesn't seem real. And like you think like once you get there, it's gonna be like this huge like moment and like a sigh of relief. But like as soon as I got there, it's kind of like, okay, now what's next? What am I gonna do next? What's the next big match? And it's like, man, it's just you try to take a moment to stop and smell the flowers, but you realize like the wheel keeps moving and you just gotta keep on moving with it.
I'm interested. There's a lot of interesting names backstage at MLW. Is there anybody you find yourself going to, talking to about how to, properly get through this period of time right now as you are, moving up the ranks?
I wouldn't say there's anyone specific. There's a lot of great minds back there, and I'm the type of guy to just kind of chop it up with anyone and everyone. There's nobody that's particularly standoffish or hard to approach. So I've just picked up little tidbits everywhere I can. But I wouldn't say there's anybody off the top of my head that stands out as like a this is the guy I go to for the advice.
Yeah, for sure. And you recently decided to resign with MLW, I believe. I take it that was not a difficult decision for you.
It wasn't difficult in the sense like listen, like I've never felt like they've treated me wrong or done me wrong or done anything shady or anything like that. The only thing is like I'm getting older. I'm not a 20-year-old kid anymore. So I'm starting to realize that my years in wrestling are numbered. So we just had to make sure it was an agreement that financially got me to where I was happy and able to facilitate the things in my life that I need, not being like a young kid anymore.
Yeah.
So we were able to come to an agreement that I think we're both happy with. I'm excited to see what happens the next couple of years.
Yeah, man. And you say you don't know how many years you have left. Like, do you have an age or a date or an accomplishment in mind that would coincide with you maybe deciding to step aside, or no?
It's funny. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, and I was saying like, oh, when I'm like 40, I'm gonna be done. But then I'm like, you know what? I remember when I first started and thinking like at 35 I'd be done, and now I'm 31, and 35 is right around the corner, and it's like, no, no, I'm not done yet, So who knows? Maybe once I get a little bit further down the road, I'll start to realize like I want to stay a little bit longer or transition into, doing some different roles within the business. Or maybe before then I'll realize, man, I need to get the hell out of here. I hate this. There's just no telling. But the one thing I do know for sure is I never want to overstay my welcome. I don't want to see myself start like kind of tumbling down the card and losing relevance and just kind of begging to be kept around. So if I ever get there and I don't realize it myself, hopefully I have a good friend that'll kind of take me out to pasture.
Oh wow. Okay. I don't want you to think about old Yellering yourself. You made that very dramatic. So, you brought up how well you feel the company's treated you. The last interview I did for MLW was with MSL, and man, that thing has spiraled out of control with what's going on back and forth with him and Janela now on social media. Since it was my last piece, and it's still very much active in my Twitter feed. Do you have any thoughts on the back and forth between these two entities?
I mean, listen, like I'm not gonna speak for MSL, and I'm not gonna speak to Janela specifically. But like anyone who's out there talking about these like details that they know, it's very difficult for me because I'm watching flat out lies, like flat out lies just being told. And what the hard part is now the pro wrestling, even the pro wrestling fans who liked MLW see that and go, oh man, they treat their talent bad. I don't want to support them. And
Yeah.
then the fans that maybe weren't familiar with us or didn't like us or were a fan of the people saying these things, it just solidifies their reasoning not to watch the show.
Right.
And it's based on these falsities, you know. Like the thing is, I just bought a new car. I live in a nice place. I don't work another job. I'm taken care of. I have guaranteed pay. Like all these things that like they're acting like it's like they act like I'm getting paid in like peanuts and handshakes. It's just not true, you know.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, here's the other thing. Even if I was, I would have been the one to sign that contract and agree to it. I wouldn't be. There's no gun to my head. Like that's the thing. Like my very first contract with MLW was not enough to live on. It was not enough to quit my job on. It was not enough. But at that time, I wasn't a big star in the industry. I didn't warrant that type of pay. And
Yeah.
before they had to, before my contract was up, they gave me a raise. And then before that contract was up, they gave me another raise. Like so it's like if they might sign these entry level guys who are kind of like prospects in the industry,
Yeah.
not made stars, prospects, and they give them a fair deal and they say, hey, if you prove you're worth more, you're gonna get more. If you don't, we're gonna let you go. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable business model. So yeah, it's frustrating for me. Like I don't want to sit there and chime in on every little Twitter argument. I think it's silly and nonsensical. But at the end of the day, like if you think guys like me, like Fatu, like Davey Richards, like Richard Holiday, Homicide, if you think guys like us are getting paid in popcorn handshakes, like use some common sense. Like we've been taken care of. We've we're compensated well, and at the end of the day, no matter what the dollar figure is, it's a deal that we agreed to. So it's like I don't understand the argument, but more than anything, it's frustrating to see just flat out lies being told.
Yeah, dude, a lot of mudslinging this week. It's unfortunate. I agree with you. It just kind of makes everything. It's like when you lay down with pigs, you wake up in mud, right? So like nobody's clean on the other side of something like that.
Exactly. I really wish I understand MSL. He's like it's like when you're saying something that's not true, you want to stand up for the truth. But yeah, like at this point, I really wish like all parties involved would just kind of like hit the brakes, cut their losses and just stop because it's just become silly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you are doing in MLW, man. It's been nice seeing you get to play around in these MLW Azteca waters, right? After coming out of the feud with Fatu, it would seem that they want, try something different with you right now. How have you enjoyed getting to kind of play around in the MLW Azteca waters?
It's been different. It's definitely kind of, a different flavor, a different vibe. Um, some different wrestlers to kind of play off of creatively. So it's always interesting in that regard to do something new. And I'm enjoying it. And I'm just kind of excited to see where it all goes.
Yeah, well, you got a match here coming up against Octagon Jr. I believe that goes down this Thursday on MLW's YouTube channel. But you've actually had a chance to share some screen time too with Cesar Duran. Man, he's one of my favorite people to just watch in pro wrestling. What is it like to get to share the screen with him and work with him on a project like this?
It's interesting because I think a lot of people thought that character was gone forever from the pro wrestling world. So to have him reprise a role within pro wrestling, the charisma he brings is like very undeniable. It's a privilege, to be able to have that in our product.
Yeah, and he's got a real acting background. I didn't know if it was different for you working with him as opposed to other wrestlers where you're kind of just trying to play with stuff, throw stuff against the wall. I would think his approach is maybe a little bit different.
His approach is different, and we're not necessarily trying to trip him up or anything. It's just kind of the way we do things. But he's good at adapting. I'll put it that way.
Okay, fine, fair enough. So, were you a fan of Lucha Underground before MLW Azteca?
I was. I didn't, I'm not going to sit here and BS you and tell you I watched every single episode. But yeah, I paid attention to what they were doing, and I watched a fair bit of it. I had a lot of friends that were working there at the time, and it was just something so different at the time and something so unique. Um, and to get to kind of pick some of those elements and integrate them in what we're doing, I'm glad that it's being done just because it's like, I think there's some fans that miss it, and it's not like, we're copying it or bastardizing it or anything like that, but, some of the elements, are being carried over. I think it's a fun experience for the fans.
Yeah, dude, it's very different, man. And like, you got a big bout coming up here February 26th as well. You're taking on Davey Richards, the winner of the Opera Cup. What do you think about this opportunity to step in the ring with Davey Richards? Have you been a fan of his for many years, like several wrestlers of your age?
Yeah, man. A huge fan. Like, I think he's one of the best to ever do it, man. And I'm super excited. He's one of the last guys left who I would say is kind of like a dream match for me.
Okay.
And I just a few years ago, it was like off the table, because he had kind of, backed out of the pro wrestling world. So to see him back, and not just back to collect, a couple, um, paychecks, he's back in it 100% and firing on all cylinders as good as he ever was. It's very cool, and I'm really excited for the match.
Yeah, and when you see guys like Davey Richards coming in, and you talk about these other names you mentioned earlier that are walking around, you're the champion right now. Is it nerve wracking seeing these guys come in and like move up and want to take, I guess, like legitimately take what you have and kind of try to take your spot?
Uh, I mean, no. I don't want to sound any kind of way, but
Sure.
if they take if they could beat me, they can have it. That's mindset. If they earn what I have and they take it from me, that's theirs. But until that day comes, it's like, I'm here now. I'm at the top of the mountain. I feel like I'm working harder than ever to stay there. So if someone earns what I've got, more power to them. At the end of the day, I just, I want to have, I want the best. I don't want to have a locker room where I look around and say, I'm going to be here forever. No one's ever going to take this from me. I want to look around and see sharks swimming in the water, because that's going to be what provides the matchups that people want to see. That's going to provide the content that people want to watch, and that's going to be what gets people talking.
Now, I know you've talked about how you want to keep the title in MLW, make people kind of come to you, but I know how much that Noah relationship meant to you as well before the pandemic. I think 2019 is when you kind of started up over there. Would you like to take the title back over there? Kind of what's the relationship like with you and Noah at the moment?
Obviously things are so chaotic still with the pandemic and protocols for travel and all that, but 100% that's something that's very, very important to me. That's at the top of my list as far as things I want to do, is to get back over there in some fashion. Whether that's another big long tour where I'm able to defend the championship, or shorter stays. I'm not sure what's going to be in the cards. Um, but I very much want to get back out there. I think it's something that will provide some really interesting matchups that maybe we didn't get to do last time I was there. So there's still a lot to do over there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, lastly here, in dynasty related news, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how your old buddy MJF has been like embroiled in this war of words with CM Punk. It's got to be cool for you to watch. Who do you think is winning the war of words right now, MJF or CM Punk? Do you have an opinion?
I think MJF's the man. I think, listen, CM Punk is great. I'm not going to sit here and bash him. I'm not going to say he's, anything bad about him. But man, MJF is he's on a different level right now. Like he's so you could tell he's just like every week he gets better. Like, not just on the mic, in the ring. Like MJF is so phenomenal. He's a he's one of the very, very best doing it right now. And every time I watch him, I'm just it's just awesome. It puts a smile on my face,
Yeah,
and I'm happy to see it.
Cool, man. All right. Hey, Hammerstone, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me here today. Anything you want to put over before we wrap up the interview?
I just say the same old generic stuff. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the like. Follow MLW on all the social media. Check out our YouTube channel and keep up to date with everything I'm doing.